Sakshi TV special immigration show with attorney Ms. Prashanthi Reddy from the Law Offices of Prashanthi Reddy PLLC. Please note that Sakshi TV now has 3 immigration shows every week. On Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. EST with Prashanthi Reddy in English. On Thursday at 5:30 p.m. EST with attorney Chand Parvatnini, and on Friday at 6 p.m. EST with attorney Bhanu Lindra. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you're an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email us at usa@sakshi.com or call 866-725-7441. Before we begin the show, please note that the information provided on this show is not a legal advice and is for general informational purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for use of information. If you need specific legal advice, please log on to the attorney's website or contact the attorney directly. Ms. Prashanthi needs no introduction, but if you need consultation, please log on to reddyesq.com for contact information. And when you connect with them, do not forget to mention Sakshi TV. ReadyESQ.com from the beginning has put a wealth of free information and online tools in the hands of immigrant community and for the benefit of US employers. The ReadyESQ.com site provides you with latest and cutting-edge information on US immigration law and policies explained in terms you don't have to be a lawyer to understand. Today's topic is the immigration updates, and we will continue the knowledge session along with the news and updates on latest immigration, followed by Q&A. Before we get into the topic, you can call us on the numbers displayed on the screen for questions related to immigration and also ask for tips. Hi, Ms. Reddy, how are you doing?
Hi, Tony. I'm good, thanks. Long time. How are you?
Long time. Yes, I'm very well, thank you. How did your Thanksgiving go? It was quite long weekend for us.
It was good. It was good. Good meal with family, spending time with family. That's what Thanksgiving is about.
Yes, that's beautiful. So, Ms. Reddy, on that spirit, do we have any good news? Because the visa bulletin has, it's just come out. So, could you please give us any updates on the visa bulletin?
Well, it's a mixed bag, just like life is. Immigration law is a mixed bag always. So there's some good news and there's some not so good news. But,
what do you want to start with, Ms. Reddy, the bad or the good?
Sorry?
What do you want to start with? The bad or
Let's
the good?
start with the bag.
Right, yeah. The aftertaste of good is always sweet.
Right. So I wanted to give you a summary of the December visa bulletin because we, haven't had a show in the last couple of weeks, so we haven't had a chance to talk about it. So for those of you who have not looked at it or need some interpretation of, what it means, you should, continue listening and watching. So as you all know, the State Department is the one that comes up with the visa bulletin every month. And they try and figure out what the available visa numbers are based on the demand and supply. So with reference to this year, FY 2023, so we're actually in fiscal year 2023, which started on October 1st. We have an estimated annual limit this year, a little higher than the basic limit, which is 140,000. We have 197,000. This is because of the unused visa numbers, 57,000 unused family-based visa numbers, which rolled over from last year. So this is good news because there is at least some rollover. Not so good news because last year the rollover was much more. So in 2022, the rollover from 2021, because of the rollover from 2021 family-based cases, the total employment-based cases, we had 281,507. So now 197 versus 281, so about 100,000 less this year. But still a bonus because it's over the regular limit by 57,000. So still there are some extra visas to go around. This is just because during COVID in 2020 and 2021, since the consulates were closed or partially closed, they were not really processing immigrant visa petitions that were filed at the consulate. As a result of which, all those immigrant visa petitions were not being used and they were instead rolled over to the employment-based category. To 485 cases. So that's why we saw a spike in the numbers available for filing of employment-based cases. But now as consulates have opened up and are going back to business, and they're trying to go back to the normal processing time, and they're trying to clear up the backlog, there's less overflow of family-based cases into employment-based cases, as they're, more and more are being used up. So we're seeing that surplus is disappearing, and then you're also seeing retrogression because of that. And we saw a huge retrogression in October, right? Because of that, visa numbers, the supply and demand, the visa numbers not being available, more being used. So having said that, with reference to, what the outlook is for 2023, for the December visa bulletin, for EB1, the State Department has noted that there's a higher demand for EB1, and as the demand increases, there will be a decrease in the availability of visa numbers, and there will be likely a retrogression. So for EB1 in December, though, we don't see any retrogression as yet. Worldwide visa availability for all the countries and for India and China are current. However, as I said, the State Department has projected that there'll be a retrogression in the coming months for EB1, for India and China. All those who are sitting on the sidelines and need to file EB1s, please do it in December, because January is a different ballgame. We don't know what the retrogression will be, when it will be, and even if it is, then how far the dates go back. So better to be safe than sorry. File if you have, a pending I-140 or an approved I-140, go ahead and, even with the pending I-140, you can file concurrent 485. So I would go ahead and do that and not wait for the I-140 to get approved, because if you file, at least you're in the window. You have filed something. The other update is EB2. EB2 also we are seeing retrogression, not only for India but also worldwide, which is a little surprising, because EB2 has been current worldwide for all other countries for a long time now. So they have retrogressed worldwide as well. So the worldwide category, meaning for all other countries other than China and India, the final action date is November 1st, 2022, which is not too bad. And the dates for filing is December 1, 2022. So it's really the same. Dates for filing and final action date almost the same, November and December 2022. So almost current, but it's unusual to see even that much of a retrogression, because we haven't for a while. For Indian nationals, EB2 category, final action dates have retrogressed by more than 6 months. They've retrogressed from April 2012 to October 8, 2011. For filing action dates for filing, as we know, there are two different tables, final action date and dates for filing. USCIS tells us every month, which table to follow. And also for this month, which I didn't mention earlier, but I should mention now, we are following the dates for filing, and usually the dates for filing have dates which are a little earlier than the final action date. So it's always good when they allow us to use dates for filing. Going back to EB2, as I said, cutoff dates for EB2 India, as I said, the final action dates have retrogressed by about 6 months. And the dates for filing remain, pretty much the same, May 2012, which is the same as, it was in November. For Chinese nationals, both final action date and dates for filing remain the same as the November visa bulletin. They're in 2019, June of 2019. Now, while we don't have very good news on EB2, EB3 we have better news. As I said, this is a mixed bag. Right. So the EB3.
That's quite a lot of retrogression, though, Ms. Reddy.
I'm sorry?
That's quite a lot of retrogression in quite a lot of categories.
Yes, and that was kind of expected, because as the consulates are opening up and they're doing their work as they should. Right. Again, there's back to no availability or less availability like it was in the previous years. So, I mean, there is a really immediate need for some kind of immigration reform where they increase the number of visas for Indian and Chinese nationals, or they remove the quota on the visa numbers, or they use the visa numbers from the previous years, or there's so many suggestions, but they haven't implemented anything. Use only one visa number for all the family members, not have a separate visa number for each family member. So if there's a family of 4, you're using up 4 visa numbers. So anyway, nothing has been implemented so far. We're still waiting. We've been waiting for some years now. Let's hope in this administration, in addition to the present, Republican government, the Senate and the House, they're able to do something, and they come to some kind of a consensus and an agreement on, these pressing immigration issues. But moving on, EB3, as I said, slightly better news. There continues to be availability for EB3 in the worldwide category, meaning EB3 is current for all other countries. For India, the final action dates have advanced by 2 months to June. So that's good news, April to June, June 15, 2012. The dates for filing also have advanced from July to November. So that's 4 months, which is good. July to August, 1 month, sorry. Advance from July to August. So that's a 1 month advancement from November compared to December. So moved by 1 month. So 3 months and 1 month, EB3, final action date and dates for filing. For China as well, the final action dates advanced to August 2018. And the dates for filing advanced to September 2018. So there's a modest, forward movement for the EB3 category. Now, coming to the family-based cases, we shouldn't ignore the family-based cases. There is not much change actually in the December visa bulletin. We don't see any movement, either forward movement or retrogression, in both the final action dates as well as the dates for filing for all the family-based cases. The dates remain unchanged from the November visa bulletin. Really, it's the same. So spouses and children of permanent residents for Indian nationals still remain current. And this has been good news for the last few years, because I remember at one time a few years ago before COVID, there was like a several year wait, 5 or 6 years wait. If you're married to a permanent resident, to come into the country, for them to be able to sponsor you and you to come into the country. So I remember there was a big joke about how nobody in India wanted to marry permanent residents. They only wanted to marry citizens, or they would rather marry someone on a H1 because it's easy to come on a H4. But they didn't. Green card holders were not really getting a lot of good matches because of that.
Their whole motive is lost then.
Yeah, that's true. So, because of that, well, now that's not the case. So far, so good. We are still seeing green card holders, spouses, and children continues to be current. But, like everything, good things have to come to an end at some point. And I think even this will retrogress. So if you are married to a permanent resident, you should adjust as soon as you possibly can. And that's my brief. Now we can go into the FAQs, Tony.
Right. So before we actually head into the FAQs, Ms. Reddy, I was actually wondering, since we're talking about retrogression and we're talking about a lot of factors affecting immigration and the visa number and the allotment, a lot of consulates are opening up now that, COVID's gone. Hopefully, I don't know if gone is a strong word, but I'm hoping it's gone. In accordance to that, there is also a big news about somewhere that it's going to be a global recession, because UK has already declared one and US is almost hitting one. We've been hearing of a lot of people being laid off and all of that. So with this scenario, how's immigration going to be affected? How are the immigrants going to be affected in the US? Is it going to change anything for people wanting to apply for work visas or education visas?
So
Be a brief about what
I
you
know.
think.
So that question you asked, you realize we need a whole episode to answer that question.
Right, definitely we do. But I was thinking maybe you could give us a prelude to that episode.
Yeah. So since we're on the topics of green card, with reference to green cards, I mean, nothing really changes from the processing point of view. The only thing I can think of is maybe if employers are not amenable to filing green cards, there may be less green cards filed, and then so there might be more numbers available for those who have already filed, right? That's the only thing I can think of. But recession. Um, Again, that's, everyone talks about recession all the time. It's like this is one big fear that the world always has. It's always looming.
Yeah, I think the fear
The word
starts with
recession.
inflation itself, and then it moved on to recession.
Right,
Recession.
right. So I wouldn't worry about it until we're actually in it, because who knows? Nobody has a ball that they can look into and predict the future, right? So
Also, it's a superpower nation, so definitely the game is different. It's going to be definitely different for a superpower nation to actually go into something like that and handle or tackle something.
Right, right. So there will be, maybe there is already some recession, but it's not like it's really affecting things on a day-to-day basis. Except for, poorer people, the inflation has affected, the day-to-day prices. And more than that, I think people are taking advantages of it and increasing the prices for no reason. So anyway, different topic completely. But I don't see.
I'm a fan of your 2 cents, Miss Reddy, on these kind of topics, because I really think you have like a hysterical take on them while also giving us valuable information, which is like a great way for our listeners to actually churn out all the good information with a tint of laugh. Like I think that's a great quality about you.
Thank you. So again, with reference to non-immigrant petitions, F1s, I think we discussed that last session, and we can do another session on it. But basically, H1s, we know a lot of H1s being laid off from all these big companies. And luckily, there are some laws in place which allow these people to find jobs. It's a short window, 60 days grace period, but it's at least something as opposed to nothing in the past. F1s, I don't think it affects F1s right now, because people will come, students will come. If they're doing a master's, then it's 2 years away. So they're not really thinking of, recession, if it happens, is now. So they're not thinking that much into the future because they're not yet into the job market, right? So maybe those people graduating are thinking about it, but fresh F1s, I don't think it affects them. So that's my take on it.
Right. So, and now that we're getting into the topic, Ms. Reddy, could you, we have some questions gathered. Could you please explain to us about the age out, age of protection for dependent children?
Yes. So basically the questions that you're asking are related really to recession. Not recession, retrogression.
Retrogression.
Since we're talking about retrogression, and we're talking about what's happening with the visa bulletin, we saw retrogression for EB2. So it's important to talk about how this affects people, how retrogression really affects all the benefits that are otherwise given to people who have pending 485s. So one of them is this age out protection for children who have filed a 485 along with their parents. Now, if they filed the 485 based on final action dates, and then it has retrogressed, their visa number has retrogressed, it doesn't affect them, because their age really freezes at the date that they filed the 485. If they file their 485 based on dates for filing, where we talked about the two different charts. So if they filed it based on dates for filing, then it will affect them, retrogression, because, if unless at some point their dates became current, because, even though they filed based on dates for filing, maybe 3 months later, their dates became current, so it was based on final action date. If that ever happened, then they come under the same category of people who filed initially under final action date, and their age freezes as well. But otherwise, if none of those things have happened and they file based on dates for filing, and their dates retrogressed, and they go they become over 21, then unfortunately their 485 will get denied, and they will not be able to adjust along with their parents. Perhaps their parents can adjust for them, once they become permanent residents, and we see that that's current for now. So that is some, good news there. So that's what happens with, age out people.
Right. And on the same topic, Ms. Reddy, could you tell us about the availability of AC21 portability and interfiling?
So AC21 is still available. AC21 portability, for those who may not know what it is if your I-140 is approved and your 485 has been pending for 180 days, then because it's taking so long for the 485 to get approved, and because of retrogression, etc., USCIS allows portability, meaning that you can transfer your job to another employer and still keep your 485. So everything goes on as is, as long as the job is in the same or similar occupation or classification. So that with retrogression is not affected. It continues. You can continue to transfer employers as long as the job is the same or similar. Interfiling is something where USCIS has said that you can interfile between one I-140 and the other and use the one that has the best priority date, or you can interfile between an I-130 and an I-140 if you have a family-based case. Say you're married to a US citizen, obviously there's no visa numbers for that because it's an immediate relative, so you can get a green card immediately. So these are things. Interfiling is affected because interfiling is possible only if the priority date is current. So yes, your ability to interfile is definitely affected.
Right. But what about a person's EAD or AP, Ms. Reddy? Is that going to be affected?
No. So an EAD or AP is given employment authorization or advance parole meant for travel, and employment authorization is meant for employment, is given while your 485 is pending. So that has nothing to do with whether visa number is available or not. So that is not affected. Again, you can continue to apply for EAD and AP, and the EAD or AP validity of an approved EAD or AP is not affected.
Right. And what about, if retrogression, does it affect the priority date or a place in line for an immigrant visa? While in retrogression?
So you're asking me if retrogression affects priority date?
A person's, priority dates or their place in the line for an immigrant.
Right. So a priority date is determined by when you file your labor certification, really. And in some instances, depending on the type of petition you're filing, when a labor certification is not required, it's when you file your I-140. So really, retrogression doesn't affect that date. So your priority date continues to remain as is, and whenever your priority date becomes available, you can again, if you've already filed a 485, then it'll continue to move forward, or if you have not filed, then whenever it becomes available, you'll be able to file a 485. So that date doesn't change with retrogression.
Right. And Ms. Reddy, what if a person's adjustment of status application is approved, but the final action date for their category and country of chargeability later retrogresses? Is that going to affect that person's lawful permanent resident? Is that going to affect that person as a lawful permanent resident of the country?
So basically, your question is if you already are a permanent resident, and if your dates have retrogressed, does it affect you? No, absolutely not. You've already become a green card holder. You don't care anymore about, retrogression and visa numbers, all that is behind you. And 485, everything is behind you. It's already approved. So if it gets retrogressed, say a day after you got your 485 approved, you're in luck. It's not going to again, if it gets approved before it retrogresses, it's not going to retrogress again. So your green card is, a 485 approval is permanent, really. That's why it's called a permanent resident status.
Like I said, hysterically well said. And I just stopped for moments to just be in awe of you. And then moving on. So does, retrogression affect consular processing, Ms. Reddy?
So Department of State and the USCIS are only authorized to issue visa numbers if the applicant in the given, family sponsored or employment based preference category has a priority date which is earlier than the date shown in the final action date chart. So yes, retrogression does affect consular processing because you cannot file for an immigrant visa petition if your visa number is not available. And also, we talked about these two different charts, right? Final action date and dates for filing. There's no dates for filing chart for people who are outside the country and filing under consular processing. Dates for filing, which usually is ahead of the final action dates, is available only for those who want to file a 485 or just their status here in the country. So yes, retrogression does affect people. The final action date retrogression affects people who are outside the country, because if they already have an immigrant visa petition pending, then it will not be approved until the dates again come back to current for them.
Right. And does retrogression of the final action dates affect eligibility for exemption from the 6-year limit on H-1B status, Ms. Reddy?
Right. So again, just to explain to our viewers, what is the 6-year limit on H-1B status and what eligibility are we talking about? People who have an I-140 approved also get the benefit, and all these benefits are being given so that because of the long processing time for 485, some benefits have been given over the years, and this has been especially useful for Indian nationals and Chinese nationals, because otherwise, they get only 6 years on their H-1B, or the L-1 is 7 years, or 5 years if it's L-1B. So after that, they have to leave, and usually it takes much more than the 5 or 6 years to get the green card. So the United States is really losing out on talent and trained personnel, right? If they don't give these concessions. So what they've done is they've said that if you have an approved I-140, then that you're exempt from the 6-year H-1B limit and even the L-1 limit, and you can apply for 3-year extensions on your H-1. So you can continuously apply for extensions in perpetually, really, until if your visa number is not available. Right. So if the visa number is available, there's a possibility that they may not extend your H-1 further beyond 6 years, looking at the strict interpretation of what the law says. So taking it that way, it's possible that if there is retrogression, then your H-1 continues to get extended. If your dates are current, they might not extend your H-1 because they'll say that the dates are current for you. So that's how retrogression affects people who are filing H-1Bs beyond 6 years.
Right. And with that, Ms. Reddy, unfortunately, we come to the end of the session. But I have 2 more questions on this topic. And I would want to leave them on as a hook for our next episode. We'd start off with these 2 questions, end this, and then probably move on to our topic for next week.
Sounds good.
Right, that's great. So, and again, like I think I've said 1,000 times that I'm in awe of how you've always conducted to yourself, and always how you've really given our viewers and us the best of information without compromising on probably a lighter way, way of telling the information out. And we're more than privileged to really host you, Ms. Reddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure to be on the platform, and of course to have you as my host.
I'm humbled. Thank you, Ms. Reddy. You're watching Sakshi Live. This is Torani. Thank you.